Okay, so yesterday we went through the first move of the form, and today I want to make sure that you know how to do it. And we'll tie it in with our earlier discussion about movement from the Danchen. So let me go ahead and demonstrate it again. So this move is called Kai Shi. That's K-A-I-S-H-I. SHI is pronounced like with a little R at the end, sure. So Kai Shi. Shi means a movement. Kai means to open. So this is the opening movement. All right, Kai Shi. So very simple. Um, that is the way that we start all forms, all open-handed forms in Hunyuan Tai Chi. It's not the way they start all open-handed forms in Chen style. And Hunyuan is a frame of Chen style. So if we were just doing straight Chen style, which is the old original version of Tai Chi, it would look like this. That's it. So why would Grandmaster Feng redesign the first move of the form to go from this to this? Why? Yes, Kevin.
To get more qigong and practice in.
Exactly. It's very simple. When you're doing the old version of Chen style, what you're doing is rotating the Danchen backward. It rotates backward and then it goes down to the ground. All right? So it rotates backward and it goes down to the ground. Boom. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely fine to do that. But what Master Feng did was elaborate on that. Why? So that folks like Carlos would understand what's going on. Right? So, Carlos, what I was talking about was the difference between the first move of the old Chen style form and the new Hunyuan form. So the old Chen style first move looks like this. That's it. Hunyan looks like this. And my question to everyone is, why the difference? Why did Grandmaster Feng take the first move of the old form and change it from a very simple single circle to a far more complex series of 4 circles? In the old Chen style, what you're doing is turning the dantian backward and then rooting it into the ground. So you turn the dantian backward and root it into the ground. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. But what Grandmaster Feng did was add on top of that a series of other moves. He actually put a little move in front of that, and then he did an elaboration on that move, and then he did the opposite of that move, and then he basically did that move again. So he added this small move, and then he added this elaboration on it where you're moving forward, and then he did the opposite, and then he did that same move that you do at the beginning of Old Chen style. So why all that elaboration? And the answer that Kevin just gave us is it gives you a chance to practice the inner Qigong. So it's not just a simple going backward. What it actually is you go backward and touch the ground. You go backward, touch the ground, and shoot forward. You go forward and pull down, touch the ground. And now you do the old original again. So you're practicing going back and forth. It just gives you more practice. And in a sense, that actually defines what Hunyan Tai Chi is. It's a modality. It's called a frame. It's a practice frame of Chen style that gives you more practice in the inner Qigong. That's all. It's not meant to be better than Chen style or anything. It's just a way of practicing Chen style. And the reason they do that, the reason he did that, is in the old days, Chen style was focused on one little village called Chenjai Gao in Henan province. About 2,000 people live there. Most of them do Chen style Tai Chi, literally every day. So it was really, it was a family thing. It was a clan thing. The Chen clan. Chenjai Gao means basically Chen village. It's the Chen family village. And it was passed down generation after generation there. What happened in the 1920s was that the leading masters of Chen style Tai Chi in Chen village moved to Beijing and opened up the study of Chen style Tai Chi to a much wider world, to the people in the capital. The problem was, at least in Master Feng's mind, the people in the wider world, so people like us, didn't have the preparation that the people in Shen Village had. Because in Shen Village, you start this when you're 5 years old. And who's teaching you are your uncles and your dad and your grandparents and your mother and your grandmother. Everybody's teaching you this. It just comes with your mother's milk, so to speak. But folks like us who sort of, come in and start this when we're 35 years old, I think I was 38, all right? We don't have that preparation. So we need something to make up for that, to help us kind of get the insides of this before you go on to the more advanced levels. And so Hunyan is a word that's almost impossible to translate. I translate it as primordial, but that doesn't even touch on what it actually is. It refers to a ontological state before yin and yang separate. So you could talk about it as meaning original or primordial, but boy, that hardly uh, describes what it's really doing. What he was saying is, look, if you really want to get this, you have to, as an adult in your mid 30s or early 40s starting this, which is what happens with most people, you're going to have to do a little work to figure out what this really is, because it's not just learning the outer movements. That's not Tai Chi. That's just a dance. All right. Tai Chi is something much deeper than that. If you grew up in Chen Village, you'd get that from the time you were a little kid. And you wouldn't probably even think about it. This is what you do. Well, but we didn't grow up in Chen Village, so you need to look at this a little more seriously. Kevin, how many Tai Chi classes go into this? How many Tai Chi classes in the United States go into this level of discussion?
Well, none that I've seen. They'll touch on little bits and pieces, but mostly it's getting them to just do the physical movement.
Exactly. They're just dance classes. And that's fine. It's fine to go to a dance class. Just don't call it Tai Chi. All right? So, when you do this first move, a way to begin getting into it is to understand that you are doing a kind of elaborated version of Old Chen style in order to give you practice doing certain things. And the number one thing it's giving you practice in doing is moving your dantian. So, the dantian can rotate backward. It can rotate forward. It can also do a lot of other things. But in this first move, what it's going to do is rotate backward 3 times and rotate forward once. And you need to be aware that that's what you're practicing, not the outer movement. Yeah, sure, of course, the outer movement in addition, but the real practice is moving your dantian. So it rotates backward and presses down. It rotates backwards again, roots into the ground, and pushes out. It rotates forward and pulls down. It rotates backwards and presses down. That's what you're practicing. If you focus on the dantian when you do this, this is from the mind to the dantian. There are 2 sides to the same coin. So the movement is coming from this area of the body. The entire rest of the body can relax. When you watch a good Tai Chi player and you go, wow, he just, it looks so relaxing. Well, it is relaxing. It's relaxing because the power of the movement is coming from the inner core of the body, especially the abdomen. And that means your shoulders, your elbows, your knees, everything can just relax. They're not empty, but they're relaxed. When you watch a lot of beginners practice at the beginning, they're going to look very stiff. And that's because they're not really moving from the center. They're still practicing old habits of movement. And old habits are unconscious. You don't even realize you're doing it. All right? So you see them, they'll look like this. Exaggerating, but only a little bit. All right? They're stiff. All right? In Tai Chi terminology, they're called hard. So what's hard? What's hard is their joints. Their joints are stiff. Some of their mind and some of their energy is caught in their joints. And it makes it kind of stiff. They don't even understand that they're doing it. And the truth is, you will do it. You guys all do it. I did it too. So one of the advantages to Tai Chi and Qigong is they are like mirrors that let you see where you're stiff. So you just watch. And if you do this, like Jill does all the time, right? Lifting a shoulder and an elbow when it's totally unnecessary. That's a kind of stiffness. Right? Instead, you just lift. What's this look like? What's this look like? So one of the great advantages that you can get for yourself is to practice in front of a mirror. And I don't mean a little mirror. Get a full-length mirror like you find in bedrooms sometimes. Carlos, you have some big mirrors behind you there, don't you? Those are perfect. You will learn so much about yourself by just watching yourself in the mirror. And you'll think that you're doing one thing, and you'll look in the mirror and you go, wait a minute, I'm doing something completely different. And then you can modify what you're doing. You think you're being so relaxed in what you're doing, for instance. And you may look in the mirror and go, oh, really? Actually, wow, I'm actually stiff. I'm raising my shoulders, right? Or I'm hyperextending my arms. And so you just learn from watching yourself and you realize, oh, I have an unconscious habit. I'm not even aware that I'm doing this. And so slowly you can just drop those old habits. And what happens when you drop those old habits is you discover who you really are. When you're not held in the matrix of a lot of old programming. So to use modern language, it's about discovering how you are programmed and dropping the programming. And just go back to your original body and it's kind of just natural animal body. It's unprogrammed body. I mean, in a certain way, our bodies are programmed just because of the way they're built. The truth is, we walk on two legs. We don't run on four legs. We walk on two legs. That's a kind of programming. The fact that we walk on two legs and where we are in our evolutionary history means it's going to put a little strain on our lower back because our lower backs are not perhaps as well designed as they might be to support bipedal posture. So that means your lower back, your lumbar area, is something you need to be a little more aware of and maybe protect a little bit. Otherwise, you may injure your lower back. Right, Kevin? Kevin, explain your injury.
Well, used to be in pretty good shape, and then I got a real job and got married.
Yeah.
So instead of doing a lot of, stuff, I didn't. So I got out of shape. I lifted a, it doesn't matter what it was. It was an ultracentrifuge rotor up a flight of stairs and blew the left side of my L5S1 joint. So I had surgery there. It sort of fixed it. And then I blew the right side, and they went back and cleaned the whole joint out, and then it slammed shut on a nerve because they don't fuse that area. So I spent 20 plus years in agony and on drugs and using back braces, canes, etc.
Yeah. So, the kind of injury that Kevin sustained is very common. Injuries to the lower back are probably the most common injuries there are out there. Second are probably to the shoulders. Third to the knees. These all come because we're not really trained to take care of ourselves. And so you put yourself in harm's way by doing things you shouldn't do or doing things in ways you shouldn't do. Right? So when I started with Kevin, he was maybe 2 or 3 inches shorter than I was. He literally walked with a cane, and he was bent over. He was shorter than I am. Well, the truth is, he's taller than I am. He's probably 2 or 3 inches taller than I am. All right. So he went from being in agonizing pain all the time and on all kinds of drugs, pain drugs, every day, and crippled, right, and over. Now he did the work, but over time, over a period of what, half a dozen years, Kevin, he went from being bent over and crippled to being able to stand up straight and to he got off all those drugs. Now, not everybody's willing to do that work. He was.
Well, now I'm 70, and I walk 2 to 4 miles a day. I row 3 miles a day, and
Yeah.
if it wasn't for my knee I just blew out, I'd be doing more Tai Chi.
The truth is, as you get older, things will start falling off you and injuries will happen. Those are just things you have to deal with. I am not the mighty man that I used to be 20 years ago. I've got some issues too, but you're still in a hell of a lot better shape than you would have been if you hadn't been doing something. Now, there's other ways to do it. You can do it through yoga, you can do it through calisthenics, etc., etc. This is just one way to do it, but it's a very useful way to do it because you can learn a tremendous amount about your body.
I can,
Yo, you look like you got something to say.
well, I can add because my back problems aren't injury related, but they're structural. So I have scoliosis and I have ankylosing spondylitis, which is inflammation, particularly loves to inflame the sacroiliac. And
Yeah.
so what I can say is I have not had an arthritic flare since I started doing Qigong regularly. So
Excellent.
there's some special sauce happening.
I like that special sauce. Qigong special sauce. That's exactly right. You keep moving, and you keep every day that you do this. You should learn something about yourself. You just keep paying attention. So most meditation is, I don't know. There's kind of a social assumption out there that meditation is about having a clear mind. Well, and just being quiet. That's one really important version of meditation. Another equally important version of meditation is contemplation. You're contemplative. You're thinking about something, paying attention to something. So you can say that all the Qigong and all the Tai Chi that we do is a form of contemplative meditation. You are paying attention to yourself. And by doing that, what you're taking care of yourself. So to get back to this first move, all right? I'm hoping to see everybody do this first move today. All right? Reverse the Danshin and relax down. Relax down, touch the ground, and then up again. Reverse, relax down, touch the ground, and push out. And again, now forward, relax down, touch the ground, and forward, pull down, touch the ground, and reverse again, and relax down, touch the ground. Boom. In a sense, it's very simple. Just remember, you need to do all these things when you're doing it. Eventually, you will get into more complex movements. Watch. You'll get into more complex movements like that. But the basic principles of the movement are exactly the same. They're just more elaborate variations on this very simple first move. That's why we spend so much time on this first move. Master Zhang used to say, and he was right, if you can get the first move, really get it, you will get all of Tai Chi, because all the basic principles are in the first move. All right? Reverse. Press down. Take your time. Let it sink. Let your mind sink through your body until your mind touches the ground. And then you bounce off the ground. And again, sink. Let your mind sink through your body until it touches the ground. And then you bounce forward. And relax. Let your mind sink through your body until it touches the ground. Bounce off the ground and pull down. Again, let your mind sink through your body to the ground and bounce and sink, and let your mind sink down to the ground. Boom. It's very simple. It's very simple, but you do have to do all those things to make it work. If you catch it, you'll know you've got it when it feels easy and relaxed. And when you feel like you're almost flying. Right? Even though you're going down and touching the ground, and then you bounce. We think of the ground, and I'm on a cement pad here, so you think of that as, wow, that's a really hard pad. Yeah, in one way it is. But if you think about it as the surface of a trampoline, oh, now you start to assume a different relationship to the ground, right? Sink down through your body until it touches the ground, and then bounce. And sink down and bounce. And sink down and bounce. And you go, okay, well, that's a little game you're playing. It's more than that. Right, Kevin? Why?
The ground force effect, or whatever that's called. But is it, it's interesting if you start doing your movements thinking about that, because you can, it's not just slamming your foot down, it's finding the area that it just comes back up. It's kind of cool. Can't do it very well.
It's something that takes a little time, but it has to start with awareness. What Kevin was mentioning is it's called the ground reaction force. That is not ancient Chinese Taoist dogma. That is modern physics. Get on Wikipedia and look up the ground reaction force. When you go into the ground like that, the ground comes up into you. For every action, there must be an equal and opposite reaction. So you think you're just going down into the ground. But actually, what's happening is you're going down and the ground is coming up. If you're aware of that, you can take advantage of it. Go down, you can feel something coming up into you. That's what you grab hold of to bounce back up. Right? I feel energy coming up my legs. Grab it. And just sink into the ground. I feel it coming up. I'm going to grab it and use it to go out. Right? And then again, into the ground. I can feel the energy coming up. I'm going to grab it. Boom. And grab it. Boom. Right? I go into the ground and I'm going to go on to the next move. This is just physics. Any good athlete in any sport is going to use that, and they do use it. It doesn't mean they're even conscious of it, but some of the greatest athletes in the world aren't necessarily analytical scientists. They just have a very natural way, for whatever reason. It's like, how can some little kid at age 2 or 3 years old sit down in front of a piano and play Mozart? Well, they've got something, at least that I don't have, right? It's the same with movement. There are some people who are just naturally attuned to this kind of stuff, and they pick it up without having to be told and without having to do all this analysis. But for me, anyway, the analysis really helps. So think about this. When you touch the ground is coming up touching you. And I'm serious. Get on Wikipedia and look up ground reaction force. When you walk, do you know how you're actually walking? It's because of the ground reaction force. Right? I'm going to push off into the ground. But what really makes me go forward is the ground pushing back. And it pushes back. And it pushes back. Are we conscious of that? No, but that's what's actually happening. So suppose you become conscious of it, now you can use it. And now you can refine that. And when you watch a really good Tai Chi player, right, they are using the ground reaction force. They're not grabbing it and using it like that. It's much gentler. It's much more respectful. Like you are dancing with a partner who happens to be the earth. Right? So you are using your partner's energy. You're exchanging energy with the earth itself, and using that as part of your movement. I mean, which you just do naturally anyway. But now you're taking that natural, naive, unsophisticated movement and becoming conscious of it, and becoming much more sophisticated in its use. Not as a dictator to it, but as a partner to it. At least that's what it feels like to me. And when you watch someone who's really good at it, wow, that you may not even understand what's going on, but you'll go, wow, everything they do just, it looks so effortless. It looks so natural and effortless. How are they managing to do that? Well, that's not the only trick, but it's one of the tricks, is to be aware of the ground reaction force. Okay, we got 5 minutes left. I want to see each of you do the first move. Let's start with Jill.
Okay, here we go. Let's see if we can smash all that into. All right.
Good. Okay. Years ago, Master Zhang knew very little English, but he would talk with some of his Chinese students and learn certain phrases or sentences that he had them teach him, and he'd memorize them in order to teach. And one of the phrases or sentences that he learned was, every movement all the way. Now, that's kind of like programming code. What does that mean? Every movement all the way. What he meant was sink all the way into the ground. So, when you sink, take your time. People wonder, well, why is Tai Chi done so slowly? One of the big reasons is to give you plenty of time to sink into the ground. This is partly mental and it's partly energetic. You sink into the ground. Take your time. You can feel your energy go down your legs. You can feel when it touches the ground. You probably even want to go into the ground a little bit, and then it bounces back up. And it sinks into the ground, and it bounces back up. All right, that sinking takes a second or two. It's not supposed to be realistic martial movement. It's practice. And the practice is to sink your mind, right? The other side of your mind is your energy, to sink them both into the ground. Once you have practiced this for 5 or 10 years, right? Then you can do it so quickly, boom, like that. But only because you practiced, right? If you're a concert violinist, though, you can play really fast, but that's only because you practiced for 20 years, right? When you begin, you go slow. Let it go all the way down. What you may find is, at first, that you think you're going down all the way into the ground, but you're not. So you take your time and you watch inside and you feel that, boom, right there, boom, it hit the ground. I could feel it. Boom. Now I'm actually going to go into the ground a little bit and then bounce back up. So take your every movement all the way. Think of this as this is just the first movement. Count the number of times you touch the ground. All right? 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. The first movement, you're touching the ground 5 times. You need to take time to do that. Now, if you're paying attention, you should also see yourself do this. When you touch the ground, you always touch it twice. The first time, so to speak, that you're touching the ground is to complete the motion that you were just engaged in. Then you go down even deeper to get ready for the next motion. So I complete this motion, and then I get ready for this motion. So it's always 1, 2. Now, counting out 1, 2 and paying attention to it is very artificial. You should do it just to get the practice at first. And once you get the idea, then sort of forget about that, because you don't want to be paying, you don't want your mind locked in on that. But all right, what it means is deep, and then deeper, and then boom, on to the next movement. And then when you let go of the practice, then it just all slides into one thing. Boom. All right? Okay. Carlos, let me see you do it.
Right.
Good. All right. So both of you have got the basic movement. You should just practice this. I know it's such a simple little movement. You're gonna need to do this first movement 10,000 times before it becomes yours. I mean that literally. All right? You're gonna have to do this whole form 10,000 times before it becomes yours. All right? Because you've got a lot of stuff just to let go of. And it takes a lot of times through the form just to drop all that stuff. Okay, guys. All right, you're welcome to stay for the advanced class if you want. Give me 10 minutes and we'll start the advanced class.